The USA has just received a major warning. The United States has just received one of the strongest economic warnings issued this year. UBS, one of the world's largest financial institutions, has released new analysis showing that the probability of a US recession has surged to 93% based strictly on current hard data. This is not a prediction made by political commentators, market influencers, or social media speculation. It comes from a global financial firm reviewing concrete indicators such as industrial production, employment consumer sentiment, and income data. The number itself, 93%, is significant because large institutions rarely attach recession probabilities that high unless the data is pointing in a very clear direction. According to the Newsweek report, UBS believes the economy is now operating in conditions that historically line up with periods immediately preceding a recession. The odds of the US economy slipping into a recession have grown in recent months. The global financial services company said that recent hard data on the economy pointed to a 93% probability of an economic downturn, a risk level UBS described as historically worrying. It emphasized that the model it uses focuses on measurable indicators rather than opinion-based forecasts. This quote matters because it clarifies what UBS is basing its warning on. The use of the phrase hard data signals that it is not relying on market psychology or political uncertainty, but on actual measurable performance within key sectors of the economy. When a major institution releases a probability number this high, it typically reflects internal confidence that the risk environment has shifted sharply toward downturn territory. Although UBS is not officially declaring a recession, the shift from moderate risk to extremely high risk represents a meaningful change in outlook. UBS cites several economic factors that contributed to this sharp rise in recession probability. First is the decline in industrial production. In July, industrial output contracted by 0.1%. While this may seem like a small drop, industrial output is a leading indicator of real economic activity, and consistent weakness here normally signals reduced business demand, lower production cycles, and slower output across multiple sectors. When industrial production begins to weaken consecutively or unexpectedly, it often reflects that companies are pulling back due to reduced orders or anticipated slower growth. Second, the employment data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed unexpected weakness. In August, the US economy added only 22,000 jobs, far below the forecast of 75,000. That shortfall is significant because August is not typically a weak hiring month, and analysts had expected stronger numbers after what appeared to be stable hiring patterns earlier in the year. However, the underlying concern is not simply the low August number, it is the revisions. Job gains for June and July were lowered by a combined 21,000 jobs, with one of those months shifting into negative territory after adjustment. Downward revisions typically reflect that businesses hired fewer workers than initially estimated, and this usually signals underlying slowdown in labour demand. In addition to labour and industrial production, UBS highlights a decline in consumer confidence. The Consumer Confidence Index fell to 97.4 in August, and the Expectations Index, which measures how consumers see economic conditions over the next 6 months, dropped to 74.8. Historically, expectations readings below 80 have been associated with elevated recession risk. Low consumer confidence affects spending patterns, and since consumer spending accounts for roughly 2/3 of the US economy, falling sentiment is a major risk factor. Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi, in an interview with Newsweek last week, said, "I don't think the economy is in a recession, at least not at this point, but it feels like it's on the brink. It's on the precipice of a recession." As soon as you see negative employment, payroll employment decline in a month, that's when alarm bells should start going off, he added. Chief economist for Co-America Bank Bill Adams, in comments shared with Newsweek following Friday's jobs report, said the US economy is operating in low gear in 2025, but is probably still growing. That is, not in recession. Economic growth will likely remain modest through year-end, then regain traction in 2026 as fiscal and monetary policy turn more accommodative. Another economist interviewed in the article, Arindrajit Dube of the University of Massachusetts, Amherst, expressed a similar concern about the totality of current labour market data. He said the combination of soft indicators and weak job numbers may signal the beginning of a broader economic slowdown. His comments highlight the fact that hiring momentum has been deteriorating for several months, raising concerns about whether businesses are becoming more cautious due to uncertain future demand. Consumer sentiment is another area where signs of weakness have emerged. According to the article, the Conference Board's Consumer Confidence Index fell by 1.3 points to 97.4 in August. The Expectations Index dropped to 74.8, falling further below the 80-point threshold the organisation says typically signals a recession ahead. These figures are closely watched because consumer confidence influences household spending, which makes up a significant portion of US economic activity. When expectations decline, consumers often reduce discretionary spending, which can further slow the economy. Industrial production has also shown signs of weakening. The Federal Reserve reported a 0.1% decline in industrial output in July. Although the drop is small, it contributes to a cumulative pattern of stagnation. Industrial production reflects activity across factories, utilities, and mining, and even minor decreases can signal reduced business investment or declining consumer demand. Combined with weakening job numbers and low consumer confidence, the decline in industrial production supports UBS's conclusion that economic risks have increased. Despite these concerns, not all economists agree that recession is imminent. Chief economist for Co-America Bank Bill Adams provided a more moderate interpretation of the data. In comments shared with Newsweek, he said, the US economy is operating in low gear in 2025, but is probably still growing, that is, not in recession. Economic growth will likely remain modest through year-end, then regain traction in 2026 as fiscal and monetary policy turn more accommodative. His perspective suggests that while economic growth has slowed significantly, the country may avoid a recession if conditions stabilise and policy adjustments take effect. This interpretation offers a more balanced outlook and reflects the range of views among analysts monitoring current trends. The article also notes that personal income and consumer spending have remained stable so far in 2025, according to Labour Department data. Despite concerns that tariffs introduced by President Donald Trump might lead to higher consumer prices and reduced spending, these fears have not yet materialised in the data. This stability provides some counterbalance to weak indicators and suggests that the economy retains pockets of resilience. Looking ahead, the article highlights several upcoming data releases that could influence the economic outlook. These include the annual revisions to non-farm payroll figures and new inflation readings from the Bureau of Labour Statistics. Payroll revisions are particularly important because they can alter the interpretation of recent job market trends. Inflation data will also be closely watched because high inflation could limit the ability of the Federal Reserve to adjust interest rates in response to slowing growth. These data releases will play a significant role in determining whether recession risks increase or moderate in the near term. The elevated recession probability issued by UBS serves as a major warning, but not a definitive prediction. The US economy remains in a delicate position where multiple indicators are weakening, but some areas continue to show stability. Policymakers, economists, businesses, and households will be monitoring developments closely as they assess how to prepare for potential challenges. For now, the message from the UBS analysis is clear. Hard data shows increased risk, underlying conditions are weakening, and the economy should be approached with caution. While the situation does not yet meet the criteria for a recession, the combination of slowing job growth, declining consumer sentiment, and weakening industrial production illustrates the importance of vigilance. Businesses may respond to these trends by reducing hiring, limiting expansion, or tightening budgets. Households may begin to adjust spending habits, postpone large purchases, or prepare for potential financial strain. Policymakers will face the challenge of balancing recession risks with inflation management as they consider potential policy interventions. It is important to understand that this is not the first time the United States has faced elevated recession probabilities. Economic models have been issuing recession warnings for decades, and history shows that these signals do not always lead to the same outcome. In some periods, high recession probabilities have accurately predicted a downturn. In other periods, the economy slowed, but ultimately avoided a recession due to stabilizing forces, policy interventions, or unexpected improvements in key indicators. This historical context matters because it helps explain why analysts remain cautious but not definitive about the direction of the economy in 2025. A clear example of recession warnings being accurate occurred in the early 1990s, when weakness in manufacturing and consumer confidence led forecasters to project a downturn. That recession did occur, and the indicators that preceded it are similar to some of the signals seen today. Slowing job growth, declining industrial production, and rising concerns among consumers. The 2001 recession followed a similar pattern. In that period, rising recession probabilities correctly signaled underlying vulnerabilities, including weakening investment, falling corporate profits, and the bursting of the dot-com bubble. Analysts at the time warned that a downturn was likely, and the data eventually confirmed those early signals. The most notable example, of course, is the 2008 financial crisis. In late 2007 and early 2008, recession probability models, including those maintained by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, climbed sharply as housing markets weakened and credit conditions tightened. Those warnings proved accurate, and the United States entered one of the deepest recessions in modern history. The conditions leading up to that downturn involved a combination of structural financial problems, excessive leverage, and declining confidence, illustrating how multiple weak indicators can converge to trigger an economic contraction. However, there are also clear examples of recession warnings that did not materialize. In 2016, several models showed elevated recession risk due to weakening manufacturing data and global financial volatility. Despite those signals, the US avoided a downturn as job growth stabilized, consumer spending remained strong, and financial markets recovered. Again, in 2022, recession probabilities rose significantly in response to high inflation, aggressive interest rate increases by the Federal Reserve, and volatility in global markets. Many analysts believed a recession was inevitable, yet the economy continued to expand. Strong labour demand, resilient corporate spending, and targeted policy measures helped prevent a contraction even as recession odds remained elevated. These contrasting historical examples show that recession warnings should be taken seriously, but not interpreted as guaranteed outcomes. Economic models track patterns that have historically preceded recessions, but they cannot account for all future policy decisions, shifts in consumer behaviour, or unexpected improvements in global conditions. In some cases, early warnings gave policymakers time to respond by adjusting interest rates, modifying fiscal policy, or supporting key sectors of the economy. In other cases, strong consumer spending or business investment offset weaknesses in other areas and kept the economy moving forward. This historical pattern helps explain why analysts view UBS's 93% recession probability as a major warning, but not a definitive prediction. The data signals elevated risk, but the final outcome will depend on how economic indicators evolve and how decision-makers respond. Past cycles demonstrate that high recession probabilities are meaningful, but they do not eliminate the possibility of stabilisation or recovery. For now, the message is that the risks are substantial, the indicators are weakening, and close monitoring is essential as the US moves through the remainder of 2025. In conclusion, the United States has received a significant warning from UBS, which reports a 93% recession probability based on current economic data. While the country is not currently in a recession, the weakening indicators outlined in the article point to elevated risks. The economy remains at a sensitive point where future developments in employment, consumer confidence, industrial output and inflation will determine the trajectory for the remainder of 2025 and into 2026. UBS's assessment emphasises the need for careful monitoring and preparation as the nation navigates a period of economic uncertainty. Thank you for watching. For more useful breakdowns from Eureka, like, comment and subscribe.